Hey, boys and girls, Saturday night at the Atheist. I went and checked to see if Gurr was going to have a stream tonight. And of course, he didn't have any live streams coming up. So I went and set this up. And 20 minutes later, Gurr has a live stream.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what's up with that. What's up with that, Gurr?
I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what Gurr's thinking.
You know what's good is he'll attract all the Will Kincaids in the world and the Smokies, and we can.
Oh no, where'd Nestle go?
Stay out of the way. I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, he ran over to Gurr's stream.
He must have. Gurr's got a stream. Let's go.
Oh, Gurr's got a stream. I'm out of here.
See you later. Yep.
Yeah. So I linked Dr. Dan's genetic entropy thing in the description, and I'm hoping that everybody watches that.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you do it, Speed. Let Ness in.
Well, I don't think we will tonight.
Andrew, me and Speed were talking about it before we went live about Dr. Dan. I think he's a great educator. Like,
yes,
a very good communicator.
So clear.
Oh yeah.
Dr. Dan?
Yeah, that
that
graph, the way he described that, I thought that was a great way to do it, and that really hit home for me, for somebody that's really not all that knowledgeable in the field in this
it's almost like he has like a PhD in this shit, and
kind of like
telling students about it.
I know.
Does lab work, and he has done lab work.
Right, exactly. But yeah, he does good, very good.
Yeah, I would like to. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Nestle, just addressing you.
Hello.
Oh.
You know, we have to have at least one Dutchman in our stream at all.
Yeah. Just one, though. Just one.
Yeah, I don't think the world can handle more than two. It's like a part of the UN charter that our streams have to have a Dutchman.
Oh, and Andrew, did you catch my joke when Dr. Dan was, doing his presentation? I'm not sure if he was even following chat, but you had made a comment in there. You said, "Oh, that the next paragraph is just rehashing," and I'm not even sure. I don't think he was even reading the chat. And then he said it like right after you. I'm like, Andrew, you're getting ahead of the class. I kind of made that like, stay with the class now. I thought that was kind of funny.
So one of the things that really stood out was at the end there, where he was talking about, does the human population, if you graph it, look like a species that is basically mutating into extinction, or basically
well, it's funny because their whole conception of genetic entropy is basically everything that their idea of evolution or straw man of evolution is not. So genetic disease, inbreeding, extinction vortex, stuff related to genetic drift, it's all genetic entropy according to them. So it's ridiculous. Yeah.
And they don't seem to look at the facts either. Like, for instance, cancer is not getting worse, and autism, if you really look at the figures, is just getting better diagnosed. Yeah. And genetic diseases are becoming better documented.
Yeah.
Because we know the genome better now.
Yeah. Yep. And they just don't have a case. The other thing is this idea of accumulation, which I keep coming back to now. Now, if it accumulates like rust, that means that one gene, has one mutation, and that's a little fleck of rust, right? So their idea is that there'll be another mutation, there'll be another little fleck of rust, and the gene will start to wobble and get weak. Doesn't the way genes work? If a mutation is very serious, like for instance, if you get a proline, something switches to a proline in an alpha helix, then you have a dead organism. It just cuts out entirely. It doesn't work like rust. It would be like if your car got one fleck of rust on it and all of a sudden it blew up, you know,
Ooh.
and it died immediately. And I've been looking into the amino acid content of alpha helices and beta sheets and things like that. And it turns out that it's very, very statistical and wavy. And it doesn't, you can make a lot of changes before you end up screwing up a protein structure. So the protein space is a lot fuzzier than these guys think. They want to imply that these mutations, like, okay, if two mutations hit one protein, okay, the chances are that they're not going to have any effect at all. And they want this idea that these 100 mutations scattered over 3.2 billion nucleotides, or 6.4. I'm not sure how they calculate that exactly. That is going to accumulate somehow, and that is not how genes work. Genes
well, that's
discrete.
another thing, because constant accumulation kind of implies across the entire genome, like you said. But like we know that different genes, even different parts of the genome or of the same gene, I think evolve at different rates. So that kind of doesn't work.
Yeah, because a lot of areas, like as Dr. Dan pointed out, the amount of conserved space is in the single digits, and so statistically, that puts us down to less than 10% of that 100 mutations. So we got 10 mutations, and then when you look at a particular gene, or you look at an intron, instead of an exon, the part that doesn't get translated, those things are not highly conserved at all. There's one or two. There's a short sequence of nucleotides that's conserved, but the rest is not.
Splicing sites, yes.
Yeah, the splicing sites, or the pivots, that sort of thing. And it just and overall, when things do mutate and they do change, it turns out that there are redundant systems in biochemistry that make up for the change. And what you'll end up with, instead of a deleterious mutation, is you could very well end up with a new biochemical pathway that works and takes over for the one that mutated.
Yeah, but also it's very robust against errors. Like it's also the case in like the process of transcription and translation. There are also errors in that too. But even when those errors occurred, like for example, normally the protein would have a given sequence of amino acids, but because of the errors of translation, sometimes the one amino acid may be encoded differently or mistakenly, but it's still able to fold correctly anyways. So
yeah, the protein space is a lot fuzzier. The affected protein space.
It's more flat. Like they imagine there are only a few peaks and no spaces where you have more opportunities. But there are, of course,
they have a very naive view of a very complex system. Yet they're constantly pointing out about how many complex things we're finding. Right? So they can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
They want to make it discreet and simple and talk about it to their fellows, and yet they're constantly pointing out, oh no, we discovered this and this and this. Well,
not to derail the topic, we can get back into it, but just because we're mentioning complexity, that kind of reminds me of LBB again. Because yesterday I actually came up, or I guess thought of a nickname I can use for him, and I want to pass it by you guys to see how much crap it is, because it is probably crap. So how does nuts and bolts sound?
I saw you wrote that in the chat yesterday or the day before. Yeah.
Interpret that as you will.
Nuts and bolts.
Nuts and bolts. Hey,
nuts and bolts.
That's a fine name. If you like it, that's all that counts, Andrew.
I like nuts and bolts.
And in this manner, I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually wanted to ask you, Andrew. I don't know if you heard during that stream. Now, you were in the stream the other day. When was it? Was it last night or whenever the hell it was? John's stream.
Which stream was it?
Well, the one he booted you when he said you were
that was last night.
obnoxious or whatever. Yeah. And then not long afterwards, he was actually saying, and I don't know how you or what you think his position actually is, but he went on and specifically said that evolution it's impossible and it could not have happened. So I was kind of surprised. I didn't know that he took that stance. So that's what he specifically said, those exact words. So
those words, but that's
yeah,
because he's usually into the whole ID stuff. I mean, like, yeah,
right. But he specifically said it. He was ranting quite a bit during that stream. If you go back and watch some of it, and he said evolution is
well,
impossible.
granted, as Erica pointed out the other day, this is the same guy who thinks that evolution is pigs evolving wings out of their backs or something like that.
Yeah. So I don't think I've ever heard him say that, but he said those words, and he said it multiple times, not just once. Because he was ranting. So I was kind of surprised that he took that statement. And he also admitted he leans towards young Earth. He also mentioned that because he was ranting. So.
Are you talking about Maddox?
Yep.
Yeah. He was kind of admitting to young Earth last night when he was talking about the speed of light and a bunch of other stuff. But he never quite says it out loud. He's afraid to.
Yeah, exactly. But he took some stances during that stream after you left, because I continued to listen to see if he said anything, if he was going to badmouth you some more or whatever. So I listened to a bunch of it, and he was ranting quite a bit. He argued with some other people, and I was kind of surprised that he took that full stance of saying that evolution is impossible. So he's denying it all, according to his words.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll try to deny that later on or not.
He tries to deny it, but I think he's afraid to defend everything about young Earth creationism.
Yes, absolutely.
He only wants to do his the cell is a computer code and all this bullshit.
Exactly. Yep. You're absolutely right. I agree with
that. Did you hear that? God, I hate to even say it out loud, but Ojello, he had a stream with Dr. Ben Gold, and they were trying. He started out with 20 minutes where he let Dr. Gold really explain his theory very well, and I was applauding him as a host. And then they started trying to twist and talk about evolution, and Ben Gold made it very, very clear that he doesn't understand how the first cell developed, but after that, he sees everything in common descent, right? So he's on board with evolution after the first cell, which goes back, 3.7 billion, 3.8 billion years ago. And they kept trying to push him. And then Maddox, later on, I think on his stream or something, or somewhere else, he was saying, oh yeah, Dr. Ben Gold, is all on their side and stuff like that. And it's like, no, that wasn't what I got out of that discussion.
Exactly. I didn't get that either. Exactly.
The whole thing.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a comprehension problem in that community.
There is.
Wait, whose side was he saying Dr. Gold was on?
That he was that he was supporting their side, with how.
Oh, their side. Oh,
yeah. Right. Yeah. And all he was saying is, and Dr. Ben Gold is not an abiogenesis researcher, and he sees it. He sees it for the first cell as being a really big big bar. And we all do,
Right.
I mean, that is a big bar. And he kind of, I don't know if he really cares that much about it, because he works in evolution and everything forward. And,
And this is really something that drives me nuts, because especially with cosmology and common descent, it's origins or bust, as it's said for them. Like, if you don't have the origin of life, bang, evolution is false. If you don't have the origin of the Big Bang explained, bang, evolution of the universe is false.
Dr. Jason Torn is in the house.
Hey,
Dr.
Jason.
Torn.
How's it going, guys?
What's happening?
Apparently, you've impressed the internet with your chin.
Oh my God! I was getting all these compliments about my rugged chin.
I heard about this.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, I saw that. I was going, man.
I'll take it.
Is it bad that I noticed your hair first?
No, that's okay. I just got a cut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just got my hair cut.
So how about what do you call it? Bitcoin-like currencies?
What? Yeah.
I heard you did pretty well.
Yes, I did, man. I was invested in some altcoins that went like gangbusters like in the last couple days, and so I was
What is it?
very, very happy about that.
What was that one called?
New Cipher.
New Cipher. Huh? Wow.
NUCYPHER.
Can you sell it short?
You can sell them short. Yeah.
You can short it. Might be the so. Did you get out of it when it was at a peak, when it was going up?
Okay, so I didn't sell at the highest that I could have. I sold early.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
That's
like
the right thing to do.
Yeah, like it's so hard to like catch it right at the peak of when
you can't. And if you try, you're going to fail and you're going to end up losing money.
That's right.
So like I did it with Bitcoin. I got in, I had set points and I obeyed my set points.
Yeah.
And I get out and I could have made another bundle, if I'd stayed in looking at what's happened in the last few days. But I have to tell myself, you did what you were supposed to do, what you had set.
Yeah, it's so hard, like, because when I look back, I'm like, I could have made, I don't even like a disgusting amount of more money. I don't want to mention how much, but like, but you can't think of it like that because that like if you listen to any of the experts in these areas of like swing trading and like, they're like, look, like, just like you said, Speed, you have to have a set sell point. Like what, like if you're going for like a 20%, 30%, like for me, I sold at 100%. I doubled my money, but like it went up like 400%. So I could have like made 4 times, but like, I didn't, I was like, oh, forget that, man. I had the number that I was shooting for. I sold, and I'm not greedy. I'm fine taking what I got. So
I've heard that there are people that go to casinos and they make a living because they have they'll make 10% and they'll leave. And
yeah, the odds are so, God, it's such a horrible odds. And like it's rigged. At least in the reality, and not to run on about this, but like stocks, swing trading, crypto, you're essentially taking money from other people.
Yeah.
You're like if you're selling, somebody is losing money.
Somebody's losing, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the game is then to be smarter than the other people trading. And so it's like, if you're just smart ahead of the game to be like, I'm selling, like you're sticking to your guidelines, you're not getting greedy. You're not you're not like getting into the FOMO, like the fear of missing out. You're like, oh shit, it's spiked 40%. I'm going to jump in. You have to be like, I'm not doing that. You have to obey those rules, but it's really hard though. It's really hard.
I'm putting up with that with Bitcoin right now. It's like, God, should I jump in? No,
don't even fall. Don't even get into that. It's at 60,000. Like,
it's a bad leap.
Don't think, oh my God, I'm missing out like that. That's what they want you to think. They want you to do that. Like
Could everybody pop over to Gur's stream and downvote his video, please, for me, just for a minute, and then come back? Like 13 downvotes would look good.
So in other news, how are you doing tonight, Jason?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, not too bad. I was on Discord earlier today chatting with Canadian Catholic and this other guy, Catholic traditionalist. Have you ever heard of that guy?
Yeah.
Is that guy who always asks people, how do you feel about that?
No, that's another guy.
Oh, you mean the guy that's like, what's your response?
What's your response? That guy. Yeah, the horrible, horrible stream I had with that guy. Did you watch the stream I had with that guy?
Yeah,
it was so painful.
God is the ultimate answer for everything. What's your response? Yeah, that guy was insane. Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm surprised you put up with him as long as you did. So
I
Well,
don't know why I did.
Could I pose a new topic, perhaps?
Topics are good.
So I was looking into kind of bring this up multiple times. So, but I was looking into the idea of naturalism of the gaps again, because actually LPP mentioned that last night, I think, like briefly in the stream while I was there. But anyways, I was looking into it, and the more I think about it, it almost seems to be a subtle argument, or the argument is such that subtly shifts the burden of proof, in that instead of asking, okay, or well they phrase it as you're assuming that naturalism will figure everything out in the future, even though you don't know everything, or something along those lines. But I'm kind of thinking that they're phrasing it as, well, you're assuming that it isn't God, or that it isn't supernatural, or it's not going to be supernatural in the future. And doesn't that kind of seem like a burden shift right there?
I see naturalism of the gaps as being methodological naturalism. Okay, you've got a condition A, and then later on you got condition B, right? And then you look in between those two conditions and you do some other tests and you set it up so it goes to A, from A to C to B, right? Now you know a little bit more. And so C is in that gap, right? So you're always looking in those gaps for what happens. And like apply naturalism to the gaps, to the scenario where you go into your yard, there's a tree laying in your yard. Okay, and you didn't see the tree fall. So is it naturalism of the gaps to assume that the wind blew the tree down or that the termites got it? I mean, what are they saying exactly? So when they say naturalism of the gaps, we should probably say, yep, you're right.
Yeah, in other words, science. You're saying that
it's
science
called science.
doesn't know this. Science will know this in the future. You've not had to change methodology. You haven't had to change your philosophical outlook or theological outlook. You're just applying science the way you always apply science to an unknown. Finding out an unknown.
What they're actually saying is that, okay, you go from A to B, right? And you don't know what's in that gap. I think they're suggesting that we're not going to look, that we're not going to try to find that, but what's in the gaps. And that isn't what all that science is about, is filling in those gaps constantly over and over and over again. And they're sort of saying that we're not looking, we're just assuming that it goes from A to B without looking for C, without looking for that mechanism. And no, that's what science does, is look for that mechanism in between A and B, So, but that's exactly what they do. Now they're saying A and B, oh, God, magic did it. So they're the ones that are gappy, and that they're accepting the gap, but they're not looking into the gap any further than this weird construct they have that magic happened. So A, magic happened. Now we have B. I found a tree in my yard. Must have been magic. Must have been fairies. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense, but I see like Dr. Dan saying, look, we should say, tell me a way to measure, evaluate, and quantify your proposed supernatural causation. Until then, we're stuck. Yeah. Yep. I mean, if that's absolutely correct. If we, like in the God of the gaps, we're like, we have a gap of something that we don't understand. They're like, we assume that is God. Their premise is, if there's something that we don't know, we're assuming that it is of a natural origin. But we're not assuming that it's of a natural origin, because we actually have a methodology that we were able to evaluate outcomes, and everything that we have evaluated we've been able to explain naturally. We don't have a way of explaining supernatural outcomes, and we don't have any evidence to suggest where we've been like, I've evaluated this thing through this methodology and we've determined it's supernatural. We have nothing like that. So, but we have tons of evidence in the other direction. So if we say we don't know what this is, technically we're not saying it must have a natural cause. If it could, I guess it could have a supernatural
No, we're saying
cause.
we don't know.
And everything that we've evaluated results in a naturalistic explanation. But if somebody wants to come forward and say, I have a way of evaluating supernatural outcomes, great, present that, and science will consider that.
Well, I think another crucial point is that they're kind of missing the idea that when we do a test, like you said, we haven't found anything that's supernatural, but we also haven't found anything that's not supernatural, because like they could always go back and say that God wished it to be this way, and I can't test that. I can't disprove that idea. I guess I don't know if I'm making sense here, but like it seems that they're saying that we're assuming it's not supernatural, but science doesn't make that assumption, right?
Yeah. No.
Because if something supernatural happened, I think we would notice, and we would take notice, and it would be like, wow, how did that happen?
But the term supernatural is just like a loaded term, because it's like the implication is that it's outside of being natural or being explained through natural mechanisms. If it's outside of being explained through natural mechanisms, then the premise would be that natural methodologies cannot explain it. And therefore it requires an alternative methodology to evaluate that. But even in that instance, science and the scientific methodology is not necessarily limited to only naturalistic explanations. I mean, if there's a methodology that scientifically can be used to explain something supernatural, I mean, I don't know how we would do that, but I think the scientists would be open to that if it was a reasonable methodology that had explanatory power.
If you live in the movie of the Ghostbusters, the ghost would be scientific.
Yeah.
Say that again.
If we lived in the Ghostbuster world, then ghosts would be scientific, because we will be able to test them and learn from them.
Yeah. I mean, it would be a reasonable position for somebody to say God is within the natural world, and that we could explain God's actions through naturalistic mechanisms, but we just haven't discovered the way of doing that. That's a more reasonable statement, you know. But they have the omnipotent triomni God that does things that are outside of the natural world. Therefore, they're stuck with being able to say it has to be outside of naturalism.
Yep. I don't know. I've thought about it. And I try to imagine what would it be like to find something supernatural.
It's ridiculous.
Unfortunately, what they usually mean by supernatural is that a man's mind thought of it, or some kind of mind thought of it, and then it happened, right? But there are other kinds of supernatural, which would be something just materializing out of nothing, or I don't know. You know, you get this quantum fluctuation idea. That's kind of supernatural. I don't know, but I mean, it makes sense. So what the hell would it be like to find something supernatural? What are we looking for? And then I guess they claim, there's these one-off events and we keep missing them. We miss them over and over and over again. Some people say them, but
like prayers, right? Obviously they think that's supernatural, and they think that those things happen all the time, but it's just wishful thinking, right? And I mean, you really look into any of these prayers that they so-called, actually come true to them, it's just really it's just happenstance or, coincidence or what, stuff like that. But they don't, right? I mean,
Dessel Drace brings up that argument of like, if God arranged the stars to say, Jesus is Lord, And you know, my position is we just say we don't know how that happened. Like I'm not going to make a claim that God did that. And he's like, you mean you wouldn't believe in God if that happened? I'm like, no. I just would say I don't know why that's happening.
Yeah,
I'm a coward. I mean, if I saw that, I'd go to church.
Everybody's different when you ask that type of a question, which is a good point, Jason. But for me, I always think of it as, okay, if God is really all that powerful, he can come down and prove to the entire planet that he exists, right? He can, make all amputees grow their limbs back, come down as Jesus and say, I am the Lord. All of this is true, and then go back to his hiddenness again, or something like that. To me, obviously, would be convincing, and it would convince the entire planet, wouldn't it? I mean, you would think.
Yeah, I think there's a subtle distinction between showing how the stars are arranged in an odd sequence. I think something more interesting and convincing for me would be God actually, or some deity coming down, and however he does it, showing with his omnipotent powers or something like that he does exist. Like I don't think you can do that with just finding anomalies in natural phenomena.
Right. He would have to do something more like what I'm describing, and then stick around and do a lot of things and say, okay, everybody's convinced. It's something like that, more or less. Because people will make up the argument and say, oh, well, other people would say, well, that was an alien. That wasn't actually God. Some people would still deny it. And maybe that is true, but you'd have a hard time denying that.
These thought experiments are just that. They're just thought experiments. They're not really based in any reality. If we have had events in the past where people are like, what the hell? This is godlike. There is no explanation for this situation. And what happens? We find out that there's an explanation for it.
We still have those today. Look at UFOs, all the people that believe in UFOs. You have unexplained things, and people believe
nobody's saying
UFOs,
God.
right?
Nobody's saying God did that.
Right.
They're just saying we just don't know why that's the case.
I personally feel like this supernatural distinction is kind of vague and unconvincing because
it's non-defined.
I mean, to me, what's more important, because it's non-defined, to me, what's more important is the type of question you're asking and how and what I can do to test it. I don't care if it's natural or supernatural, however you want to call it. If it depends what I can do with it, right?
I'm looking for that Rob Carter thing that they're talking about in chat.
Yeah, I'm sure like this conversation right here, probably all the theists will listen to this if anybody gets wind of it, and they'll probably be going, oh, listen to these idiots talking about, having all the amputees, growing back limbs, and oh, how stupid. They don't know anything about theology. They don't know anything about God. That's the kind of response we'll get from this conversation. And like you said, it's just all thought experiments.
If I had an indication of something supernatural, I would quit trying to put my money into Bitcoin and shit like that and invest in that. And let's make some money on it. Let's figure this out. Let's harness it. What the hell?
So in the stars rearranging themselves in the sky scenario, is it the apparent situation? Did they apparently change their location in the sky, or like if you aim satellites at certain stars, they would have moved or disappeared?
Oh, you mean did it get? Is it a mass hallucination?
Or a mass illusion,
or natural? Yeah, we'd test it. We'd figure it out. And
that's what I'm saying. Even in such an event, keep your skepticism.
I mean, if somebody could move stars,
find out what happened. Find out what happened. Come up with a theory or a hypothesis and test it.
For one thing, if they could move stars to spell it out for us, right? So we saw Jesus as Lord in the stars. Number one, they would know exactly where we were.
Yeah.
Because they would have to set it up that right way. And that would kind of give me the willies.
It's definitely a national security situation.
Yeah.
Definitely a national security.
I think Jason wanted to say something.
This whole topic is like, whatever. I mean, like I think it's interesting to have these discussions, but in like, not to say this isn't the real world, but in the real world, we like things are evaluated, and we've never evaluated anything and where we've been like, this is not, I mean, we think that this is not explainable through naturalistic mechanisms. It just doesn't happen. And
I think what you wanted to say is the adult world.
Yeah, I mean, like if you think about it, people... Go ahead, man.
I just wanted to say the adult world. I mean, come on, Speed. You make it sound like people who believe in supernatural are children.
Yep.
That was kind of mean, but
I'm sorry.
Sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not. Yep.
Let's call it like it is. I mean, God, believing in Santa Claus when I was a child was okay. Believing in Santa Claus today would not be right. And I just can't see it any other way. I don't know why you want to believe in Santa Claus.
People have belief systems that attempt to address unknown things. Unknown things are scary, are fearful, and in some ways it's evolutionarily based. Like, we don't like unknowns could potentially hurt us. Like, right. we don't want, like, so when things are unknown and we're like, I can't accept that this is something that is unknown, we fill in those gaps. And throughout that, for eons, we have filled in those gaps with God. We have said, look, we can't explain these things. It must be a result of God. And we have formed religions around that.
I love the unknown.
I mean, if
I'm a
people,
weirdo.
Yeah, I mean, if it's scary to say we don't understand why this is happening and we don't have an answer for it. People are like, wait a second, there's got to be an answer for it. I mean, like, yeah, there probably is, but we don't have that answer at this moment. That doesn't mean we should fill it in with something that is incomprehensible, that doesn't fit with the natural world. Right. If the stars realign themselves to spell out God, first of all, it's a ridiculous thought experiment, because that's not going to happen. But if it did, we would be searching for naturalistic explanations. And to think that we couldn't naturalistically explain it ever, it's impossible to naturalistically explain that, would mean that our world doesn't function according to natural laws. And that would be like, I mean, if that's, I guess I'm not saying that couldn't be the case, but it's just so far-fetched.
I think we can end this discussion with this summary. Just because it doesn't have an answer right now doesn't mean there is no answer.
That's right. Absolutely.
What you just said, Jason,
lies.
If that was true, Andrew, like you said,
my
we'd be
God
fucked.
Exists. I
right?
believe
we would be fucked if it didn't act that way. If it did act that way, right?
We have 5 more people watching than Gur does.
Oh shit.
But we're
I
just
like how it's
science.
been
We don't
half
care
an
about
hour
numbers.
speed and you're still focused on that.
Speaking of that, Gur is live.
I can't let it go, Andrew.
No, Speed, let it go. You have to let it go because of letting it go.
I thought me and Gur kind of had a relationship, you know?
Yeah.
Well, that's it. You get a channel, you think you're friends, and suddenly, boom, it's about the numbers. It's about the numbers.
And don't forget, he has a different, a different audience a little bit. A lot of your audience goes over there, but not all. He definitely has other people. So.
Yeah, every night I write down the names of my audience that go over to Gur's streams. I write them down on a list. I have a red pencil.
I just typed into the chat in Gur's stream, "What's up, losers?"
That was good.
We'll see if he puts it up on his puts it up down below.
So on another note,
Midnight just left here and he's over there.
No.
Oh, Midnight!
Holy shit! That's
I'm
it.
guessing...
He's banned.
I'm guessing. Did anyone here happen to see Leo's debate last night?
Yeah.
Yes, I watched a good portion of it. I didn't watch the end of it. I didn't get all the way through. But how was the end? Was there actual. I like stopped watching because it wasn't like open discussion. They were, and freaking Hovind was just ranting for 10 minutes. Did they eventually, towards the end, get to any open discussion or?
Yeah, they had an open discussion, and then they got
a little
the
bit.
Q&A.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't watch the end.
Like Kent said, so many things wrong about cosmology in 20, 30 minutes that I was literally writing stuff down. Like, okay, I'm going to talk about this, and this in the after show because this is bad.
Yeah.
How much did you get to talk about in the after show?
Yeah, very little.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
you got booted. You got booted, didn't you?
Yep.
You got booted because you asked John, "What are you talking about?"
Exactly.
Yeah. What he was talking about.
What do you mean by that?
It's so funny. Did you hear them rant about you had mentioned, I think, Speed, that you guys don't. Did you mention it in chat that you guys don't want to come over to my stream and talk and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And then John's I forget what the hell he said. He ranted, you guys. Yeah, won't come here.
He tagged me and put out the link, but I didn't see it. I'd already gone back.
Yeah,
I was watching Billions.
Yeah, and then here he is. Andrew goes in there, and what does he do? He asks a simple clarifying question, and he gets booted.
Yeah.
So it's like,
why would I want to go there?
Yeah. So,
if I may say something that, Kent did mention something I didn't get to talk about in the after show, but it's this idea called tired light, which is basically instead of cosmological redshift, you actually have the light losing energy over time, and that's why we see redshift. As it interacts, it loses energy as it travels to us, but space isn't actually expanding. So that was an alternative idea back when we were still trying to figure out the expansion of the universe. But there are actually now a few cosmological observations that show that can't be the right explanation. I'll let someone else talk for now, and then if you want,
that's why you were asking for him to tell you what he was talking about, and he booted you. It's like,
yep.
Come on, if you have some paper or something that seriously challenges the current understanding, then tell us what it is.
Oh, we weren't talking about tired light though. That's a separate thing.
Oh, what were you talking? It was the expansion of the universe, right?
We were talking about the speed of light, early universe speed of light being faster.
Okay.
That's different from tired light.
So who says it was faster? Is that
John?
Oh, but so it's not like a Lyle thing?
Oh no, well, like we were talking about backstage, David, it's actually
I'm Scott.
I was talking to
you. We were talking about it. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. They do confuse us, but yeah, go ahead, Andrew. Continue.
So there's a whole class of theories called variable speed of light theories, Scott, and they basically alternative to cosmic inflation, where instead of this rapid expansion, you have universe, this time period in the early universe where the speed of light was much, much faster. So that way the whole universe could become homogeneous over this short time period without this rapid growth spurt. So it solves that problem at least, but it doesn't solve everything about that inflation does address.
I was surprised.
Regardless of that, we do know that the universe started out as very hot and very dense.
Right.
How far we can go back is of course the question. Still.
Right. Yeah. Even if inflation is shown to be wrong, the Big Bang is still a valid theory by tons of evidence.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, what were we gonna say, Jason?
Oh, it's kind of a side issue, but I noticed that Kent was talking about whether the speed of light was constant, and I thought he was gonna go with bidirectional aspects that like we can only actually measure the speed of light with it there and back, but we can't know the single direction. But he didn't end up mentioning that. Maybe that was just like something
a lot of theists. Yeah, a lot of theists go with that one. Yeah.
What idea?
Lost division by 2 at some point and can't handle that.
What was that? Can you say that
I
again?
said that involves the division by 2. The two-way calculation for the speed of light, and can't handle that much math.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, the fact that he comes on there and does all this like religiosity and talks about like stuff in the Bible it just makes it so weak. Like, I mean, granted, all his other scientific arguments are weak, but like when he mixes in that stuff, it's just like, it's wacky. Like I was having a conversation with Nick Lamar Suter on this topic, and Nick is convinced that like he's just a grifter, like that he's just about, hey Peter the ghost. He's just a grifter. He's really interested in making money and manipulating people. And that's his modus operandi.
And the audience eats it up. They love it. And it's, if he just makes even a stupid argument, they say, oh, that makes sense, because that's what they want to hear.
I saw virtually no, pretty much all the side chat conversation was just insults and kind of jabs and stuff like that. There weren't virtually no rebuttals as far as I can tell.
Yeah, exactly. It's a joke. I find it actually comical reading the chat anytime I watch those types of debates, because it's just a joke what these people write in there.
You know what the biggest joke was? Kent Hovind getting stumped every single time he asked Leo a question, and Leo actually had an answer.
Yeah.
Well, you should see him hesitate. How the fuck does this atheist have an answer to the question I just asked? And what's worse, I don't understand the answer.
It was a good one. I don't know
about the Bible again.
Did you see it, Andrew? Maynard Save did a super chat, and he mentioned something about jail. I can't remember what he wrote, but it was a $5 super chat. And those are supposed to be questions you ask. And then I think it was like, is this a farewell debate before Kent goes to jail or something like that? I can't remember exactly what he wrote. And it got deleted immediately, of course, and he got banned. He got banned and thrown out. He was banned immediately. And
I'm surprised. I actually said something along the lines of when Kent's around, ignorance abounds. And I don't think that got deleted for some reason. So.
Oh, really? I didn't see that one.
Yeah. Or maybe I was.
I thought it was a great debate. I thought Leo did very well. And
how does that work if you do a super chat and they delete it? Do you not have to pay, or do they charge you?
No, they just keep the money. You can't take the money back. I don't think it just.
I think that would be a bit of fraud, actually. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, on a separate topic, Speed, what was your take of your hosting of Demeter and Rebecca?
Oh my! Rebecca's.
Did you watch it?
I did. I did watch it.
Yeah. Movable object. Demeter did a really good job, of detailing everything, and I think it bounced off. They're going to have a part 2, but it just doesn't. I'm trying to figure out what she wants when she says you have no evidence of an organ developing. How would we have evidence of an organ developing?
This is like the macroevolution argument. Like they're making these claims about like that we don't see, we do see. There are examples where we could point to organs developing, but nonetheless,
does embryology help with that? Across species, because posted
Yeah, it does.
a Neil Shubin lecture where he talked about embryology and how you can see how they start out with the same.
You don't have to go. You don't have to go there.
So
okay. By the way, that is linked in Friday's weather report description. I think.
Wait.
And,
what were you saying, Scott? Something what across species?
Well, like
you don't even have to go there. You've got an example of lizards that were put on an island in Italy over just a few years. They grew new organs in order to be able to eat the food that was there and not the food that they were accustomed to.
Well, Peter, they're going to push back on that because I think that was just phenotypic plasticity. It wasn't a mutation.
It's an entirely new digestive system that developed over just a few years.
Right, but I'm just saying they're going to move.
You can pretend that is not actually new organs developing, but you would be 100% wrong. If that is what they're asking, then you need to keep their feet to the fire and say, okay, here's an example. And if they say that that's just plasticity, no, because the original animal didn't have those organs.
Okay, but
so where did they come from?
The way to approach this is not to find a one-off example. The way to approach it is to look at embryology and look at how the liver develops in an embryo. And the liver develops in an embryo. There's a bunch of tissues that are real close together. The heart is right next to the intestines, the small intestines. And the heart gives off a couple of signals. And these signals are very easy to change based on a few mutations, right? And these signals create a little tiny scab on the outside of your duodenum. You know, it's that little C-shaped thing that starts your small intestine. And that's what kicks off your liver. And from there, there's basically another signal type that changes these cells into it would be I think a pluripotent cell type, or it can turn into one of two different cells with just one more signal. Okay, and that becomes your liver cells and your bile cells. And we can trace all that out, and you can see that with just a few mutations, you can make a large change. And because of the way veins form, they will infiltrate that liver. So I mean, that
won't address their question. That won't address that
exactly. No, you don't think it does because you haven't looked at it.
No, let me explain why it doesn't. Because what they want to see is have an animal with certain organs and then develop completely new organs.
Well,
if you're going to embryology, if you're going to hold on, if you're going to embryology, they will just say it is planned to be that way. Every other human has that organ. It's not new.
You can show them that one or two mutations can change that structure. That's what you got to show them. You got to show them the line of mutations that change that structure.
Well, because
if you see an organ develop all of a sudden, just out of the blue, you're probably going to have a real problem for evolution.
Isn't phenotypic plasticity associated? It's essentially epigenetics. It's a gene expression facet, right? The genes are just expressing themselves differently given external influences.
But the problem with that, Jason, is that is how it works. That's how organisms work.
I agree.
Yeah, those two cell types, either become a bile cell or a liver cell. Okay, that is basically, there's a very slight change in some cell receptor, what a cell receives, that determines for it to be one cell or another, and that is executed through epigenetics. So epigenetics is actually how it works. So when they say, "Oh, it's only epigenetics," well, that's how phenotypes work, is through epigenetics.
Yeah,
there has to be.
But speed. Here's the thing. You're not thinking like the creation, and I'm taking Rebecca as an example. Here, hold on. I'm taking Rebecca as an example here. If you want to answer their question, You have to answer their question and go to their level. If you're answering it like a scientist, it'll go over their head, because Rebecca has already said that she's not well versed in biology and in how it works. If you're going to explain it that way, it's not going to work, because she won't understand.
But what I just told
you, this is why I think you should come up with an example that is easier to see. Don't get into the scientific details. Just show her, here's a lizard that can't eat this food because its digestive system is not set up to do that. Now, we put it on a different island where it doesn't have the food that it's accustomed to. So over time, it developed a new digestive system in order to survive. That is evolution.
They rejected it because that lizard basically, I think its stomach undeveloped when it went back into a different environment.
Right.
And they pointed out, and I don't know if it was a mutation. Well, if it's epigenetics, okay, it either has to come from the environment or it has to be inspired by a mutation.
One thing we can definitely rule out, it's not God creating new organs for that animal.
Yeah, we found that.
That is not what is happening.
Yeah.
Peter,
and if they want to claim,
Italian lizard?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Here, let me look it up for you guys.
So, and what you need to do is you need to stop explaining. You need to start asking how they. No, you need to start asking how they would explain it, and they won't have an explanation.
The thing is, Peter, that what I want to do is explain. I don't give a shit.
I know you want to. You want to explain. But
because I just explained the liver. I explained the liver to you. What part of that is not understandable? What I said.
What I'm trying to accomplish here is that you have to make them open up for an explanation, and that is why you need to ask them first. Ask them to come up with an explanation on how it works. They won't be able to come up with an explanation. When you then have an explanation,
God planned it that way.
Speed, it's your channel, bud. But the OG, I think there's an OG Sock account.
Where? Which one is it?
Reason in Science. I think it's probably an OG Sock account.
Understands it. Wow.
So it's up. You do what you want to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm not.
He said Peter understands it, so I think that's.
That's him.
Yeah, well, he was over, and that same account was just over in Gur's, kind of
that is Otangelo.
I don't know who it is, so it's you. I just want
at least Otangelo has an account with that name.
I tossed him off.
Or had.
Yeah, the second comment indicated that it was him. So.
Yeah, and he was over at Gur's, and I don't know if they banned, I don't know what they did, if they just timed him out or what, but he was spamming over there, so.
Yeah.
So, just let you know.
How did the lizards lose information? Have you looked at
it? And all of this happened while we were talking about lizards.
Ooh, that's spooky.
Oh, as a matter of fact.
Spooky.
So
as a matter of fact.
Is this a video or an article? That sounds so damn interesting. I want to look at it.
We still have more people watching us than Gur.
It's not a numbers game, Speed. Get your priorities straight.
Speed.
Come on now.
Speed. Meanwhile, I'm going to make you dance.
Oh no! Here we go.
Peter, I'm going to remove you. If
is it? Okay, there we go.
Fucking
That's
naked body.
It's just a skeleton.
Especially your body. We don't want to see what you look like without your clothes on,
Peter. Peter, do you have a link to that lizard thing?
It's. Hold on. Let me. Yeah, I'll get one.
Meanwhile, we'll observe Speed dancing.
I don't think we should. Do we have to?
That's actually a pretty good dance.
Oh yeah, that does look more like me. Fit and lean. Do I dare make this guy full screen?
Oh shit.
It's actually pretty good.
Yeah, you always have to be careful of that with
Yeah,
Peter.
I know.
Peter does some great stuff, we do have to say, but sometimes
Yeah,
it can get you in trouble, though.
I just
pretty easy.
vanished.
You know, as I think everybody should know that I'm really sensitive.
Yeah.
You
and
are.
I embrace it. I've tried all my life to be sensitive, and I'm really fucking sensitive. So be careful. Be careful what you do. Anyway.
Only other thing I was going to mention.
We're even with Gurr. God damn it. Who's keeping track though?
That means we lost viewers. We were up to 425.
Danny's over there.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say about the degree snobbery, my degree snobbery.
Oh yeah.
That I am a degree snob. So I will fully admit that. But I think that I have some justification in that, because I think it's reasonable to conclude that individuals that have more formal education, obviously not always, meaning like somebody can have a formal degree and be full of shit, and somebody could not have a formal degree and be spot on a particular position. But generally, those are good gauges for evaluating whether somebody has the requisite knowledge in a particular area. It's not a given, but it's a good foundation. And I thought of that when I was hearing Rebecca to say, like, I'm not a scientist, but all this stuff is wrong, etc. I'm like, how you even make these claims? You don't even have a background in this area. So
I put two links in the private chat. Do you want the other one? There's also a link from this guy called Harun Yahya.
What?
Who's disputing it?
Disputing what?
The guy is in prison for about 1,000 years now because he's basically the Turkish version of Kent Hovind. Combined with the Turkish version of whatever the fuck the guy from Playboy was called, Hugh Hefner.
Oh yeah, I don't think we're really interested in him. Doesn't sound very good.
No.
I can't imagine why I would be interested in that, Peter. Yeah.
Anyway, Jason,
to be fair, if you want to watch the creepiest creationist videos, you need to do a search for Harun Yahya and his how would you say that? His enhanced female following. They all have the same breasts. They all have the same lips. It's
oh my god,
really, really creepy, and he makes them dance.
Anyway,
I'm
Jason,
still waiting for Kent Hovind to do something like that. Have all kinds of women dance at DAL with very big breasts and gigantic lips. Still waiting for that. Probably not going to happen.
On degrees. I always look to people's credentials first, and it at least indicates that they've at least tried to read the damn book.
But
the problem sometimes with credentialed, particularly some of the creationists, when we just look to their credentials, is that they quit doing the work about 20 years ago and sold out. And the other thing is that when you get a degree in, like this one guy has a degree in like marine biology or something, and he went off and he studied corals. And if you study just one thing, I've got a friend who's a molecular biologist turned programmer, and all he studied was paddlefish.
Yeah.
And that's, and basically, so you can also get funneled into a particular kind of thinking. So sometimes people like myself who take a broader, who really work to educate themselves, but take a much broader approach, going across multiple disciplines. We tend to be synthesizers, and that we can synthesize some of the ideas, but you have to be suspect of us because we could be full of shit. Did we read the books? The point is, you got to read the textbooks, not the textbooks and the papers. You read the papers and you figure out what you can't understand, and then you go read the textbooks until you can fucking understand it.
I totally agree with you, but I would say that one facet of getting a terminal degree like a PhD is it's not just the instruction; it's the
learning how to think.
Absolutely. And going through that trial of like, it is not easy, and,
Right.
and you're forced to think outside of the box, and to you have, formal mentors that are trying to guide you in terms of how you form hypotheses. You're being critically, when you do that, like, people are constantly telling you your shit sucks. Like,
Yep.
you write something, you think it's great, and somebody gives it to you, and like, this is incomprehensible. What the hell? And it's just redlined everywhere. Have that happen to you like 10 times, and on the same, like, you do the paper, they redline it. You fix it all up, you think it's better, it's redlined. You do it again, it's redlined. You do it again, it's redlined. You're like, fuck, man, I'm dumb as shit. Like, why can't I figure this stuff out? That's part of it is going through that. And so. But I bet that guy knows a lot about paddlefish, though. I bet he knows a shitload about paddlefish.
Do you know the other place you get that, Jason? Start a YouTube channel. People will tell you suck every 5 minutes. Every stream you turn into, speed of pudding sucks.
But but interestingly enough, like, as an example, yourself, you yourself are saying, look, I'm trying to learn these things. I'm acknowledging what the scientific consensus is saying on a position. I'm reading up on that. What you're not doing is saying, I have a preconceived quackpot notion, and I'm going out trying to find researchers who don't know shit about something and trying to use that to support my quackpot position. You're actually starting from a position of saying, I actually want to learn more. Why are these things happening in our world? You're exploring it, and you're forming conclusions in that, which is absolutely appropriate. That's a great way of looking at things.
It's the only way to do it.
I totally agree. So anyways, whenever you hear me like criticize on the degree front, that's I'm certainly not attacking anybody who doesn't have a degree. I'm more addressing these issues of when people bring up, like, that are so adamant on a position, they don't have a background, and they're taking an opposing position to scientific consensus. If you're going to do that, you better bring your shit. You better bring the chops. You better bring the evidence that supports that, and you better be able to back it up.
I have a question for Jason. If we're done with this topic or no?
Fuck yeah! You always ask hard questions, Andrew, which is good. That's good. Ask away.
So you were talking about the papers, I believe. I was still looking at the lizard thing while I was half listening. But I couldn't find anything. But anyways, you were mentioning something about corrections, redoing it, and it's corrected again and again. Related to that, could you, since you've obviously been part of the peer review process, could you explain to us and for the audience how it actually works, and how kind of I guess ferocious, for lack of a better word, it may or may not be?
Sure. I mean, well, for one, there's the whole facet of conducting research before you even get to the point of publishing. So the premise would be that you've gone through some training where you've worked under other mentors, and you've conducted research under their guidance, and then they're guiding you in terms of not only how to conduct the research in your particular discipline, how to analyze that data, how to formulate hypotheses, test those hypotheses, and how to write it up, which is like, you think it's simple, like you've done all this work, now you need to write it up. Writing up cogent ideas that are structured in a way that are for scientific publications is not easy. It's very difficult. It's a very structured way of thinking.
It requires a lot of training.
it requires a lot of training. It's not like you can just do it. Like it requires a lot of trial and error of writing stuff up and having others who are trained in those areas to say, look, you're talking about a bunch of shit here. You haven't presented your hypothesis up front, front load this, your method section's got is not fleshed out enough. Like there are all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of work in doing that. But let's say you've gone through all that training. You've gone through,
you've passed the test so far.
You've passed it so far. You've got, maybe you've published some of your dissertation work. Maybe you've done some of that. Now you're like a fledgling researcher. You're working. You're collaborating with other people probably. You may be a co-author where you're a second or third author. You may be a first author. If you're first author, you're actually herding the cats. You've got other people that you're working with. You're collaborating with them. You're writing a paper. Other people are reviewing, are putting their points in. So like I'm writing, this person's writing, that person's writing, and they're trying to put all that stuff together. You're trying to get them to respond. You're going over this over and over again. So let's say you finally think you've got your paper ready to go. So now you've got your paper, you've got all your figures put together, you've structured the paper in the way that is for a proposed journal that you're looking at. So you've looked at your paper and you're like, where should this paper be submitted? And you're like, oh, should it be this journal? Should it be that journal? Does it fit with this? Does it fit with that? Looking at the journal, what gets published in those journals? You're like, this is the journal I think I want to focus on. Okay. They have a bunch of like requirements on how the paper needs to be structured. So you have to go back and fix all that shit up. You have to think about, do I have to pay to get this published? Is it like an open journal, or am I going to have to pay to have pay thousands of dollars? Where am I going to get that money? Is my grant going to pay for that? Okay. So you have to figure all that shit out. Then you have to be like, do I have supplemental materials? What about my code that I'm doing that does this? How can I reproduce all my research? So I have to structure all that in a supplemental appendix, have to make it available, have to make my code available, have to do all that work, get that structured in the way that they want it. So then you get all that stuff, you put it all together, and then you go through a complicated process of submitting your paper, you submit the paper. It goes, okay, then now chill out, go work on the other 7 papers that you're working on. So it's like a big whack-a-mole. It's like, I've done all this work on this shit and I finally submitted. Now I'm over here doing this because I might as well forget about that paper, because it could be 6 months before I hear anything from the editor. It could get rejected. Let's say it doesn't get rejected. Okay. Imagine this, you do all that work and then the editor goes, this sucks. I'm not even sending it to the reviewers because this doesn't make sense at all. It's not fit for our journal and you've missed a bunch of shit. I'm not even sending it to the reviewers. You suck. You're like, fuck, that's horrible. I got to go find another journal. And a lot of times you're like, is my shit even any good? Like this editor wouldn't even send it to the reviewers. But au contraire, academics don't give up. Because we know one editor can say it sucks ass. You go to another editor and they think it's like the most amazing thing possible. So, okay. Right. So let's say it doesn't get rejected. He sends it out to the reviewers. You get the reviews. You've got 3 people that have reviewed it. They've all got different reviews. They're like, one person's like, this is great. The other person, that sucks. The other person's like, this part's great. The other person's like, this sucks. Do this, do that. Change your methodology. Do this. You didn't think about this. You didn't do this. You're like, what do? I can't appease everything. I can't redo my whole analysis. So you have to go through it and be like, what can I fix that appeases the reviewers but I don't have time to redo all this stuff. And I got all these other papers I got to work on. So then I got to go out to my co-authors and be like, what do you think of this? They've all got to give their contributions. It's a pain in the ass. So you finally go through that, resubmit it. Maybe you're lucky it gets accepted. Usually on revision, if it gets to a review and revise, or resubmit, you're like, wow, I'm close. This is going to get published. If they're giving me a revise and resubmit, then it's likely going to happen because they want to publish it, but you need to fix it. So once you've got that point, then you're on the downhill. Then you're like, okay, I can make these changes. You do that. Yeah. But think about this. You do all that stuff. It's like juggling. You've got like and like 70% of them might get a hit. The other 30% go in the trash can, So
Right.
you're doing this constantly. You're trying to get funding. You're trying to teach classes. You're trying to do service for your university because that's
Well, and
10%.
doesn't
It's a lot.
Doesn't it also depend on the journal? Like some are a lot more lenient than others, and some allow like very few papers to get through, which we don't often hear about in the public.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the impact of the journal. Some journals are just getting like so many papers that they can't possibly review them all in a timely fashion that they just they've got to get rid of some of them. And there's an editor. Oftentimes people like the editor sees this person's paper come in. They're like, oh, I know Jim. Yeah, Jim and I worked on this grant. So he may like be more, I know it sounds kind of fucked up, but that shit does happen where he's like, I trust Jim. I've worked on stuff with Jim. I've worked on a paper. I'm probably gonna think about his paper more than like some other collaborators. They may be like, I don't know who these people are. Now it doesn't mean he's gonna treat them any differently, but this kind of bias does happen, and it is a problem. I mean, so. But this is happening everywhere. You would think that, like in general, the cream of the crop filters to the top. So I'm sorry to run on, but I'm glad you asked that question because it is a lot of people don't realize the difficulty that academics go through to publish.
It's very messy.
It's very messy. It's very difficult, and it's very like disheartening. Like most of the time, you're told your shit sucks.
Right.
So
well, the other thing that I kind of want to follow up on is when, I guess pseudoscience people, creationists in particular, see this kind of really difficult process and they either try to avoid it or they point out the biases and say, oh, well, the whole thing's flawed, something like that. Do you have any thoughts on either of those two approaches, I guess you could call them?
Say that again. Can you just repeat the what you're saying? I'm sorry. I was reading this thing at the bottom and thinking about it, but can you repeat?
Yeah. Like when creationists see this difficult process of peer review, they either respond, or it seems to me they either respond to it in one of two ways. Either they just avoid it completely, make their own pseudo journals, stuff like that, or they basically attack the process itself and point out the biases and then declare the whole thing is flawed.
Yeah.
Do you want to comment perhaps on either of those? I guess what are your thoughts on that kind of reasoning?
Hey man, if you've got stuff that the consensus is like, this is just ridiculous research, then you should be reconsidering what you're actually doing. I mean, if folks are like, look, I think my research is valid. Nobody wants to accept it. I'm going to go form another journal so I can publish it. I mean, I guess it's not impossible that you're like the diamond in the rough. Nobody can possibly understand what your shit because you're Einstein and everybody else is behind you, and all the journals and all those people that are like extremely smart and publish in these areas, they're wrong and you're right. I mean, it's a one in a whatever chance that you happen to have the most amazing research and nobody can recognize it. I guess that's not impossible, but more likely you need to rethink what you're doing because you're going down a road that is ridiculous. And if you want to think you're going to go form some other journal, I mean, whatever. I mean, it's not a legitimate way of approaching it. You should be trying to publish in the high impact journals that there are and convincing those people that your research is legitimate and you can back up those claims with your actual evidence. If you have legitimate science and people are like, this is wrong, and you're like, I can prove that what I'm doing is actually legitimate, then are you just a poor writer? Well, what's going on? Because if he's so legitimate, you should be able to support that. And I would say, figure out how you can better present your evidence and go to the high impact journals and publish. Do it.
Right.
That's what I would
say. The other thing was, I do hear some creationists nowadays, because I've heard, I've looked into talk about so-called replication crisis in psychology and medicine and things like that, probably due to some biases in publication and things like that. And I've heard a couple people, kind of rarely, but I won't name names, but some creationists talk about, well, this shows that the peer review process is bunk or something like that.
I mean, actually, one of my chapters in my dissertation was on scientific reproducibility and its applications to, like, not just climatology, but modeling, like methods of modeling. And there certainly is, there are complexities with reproducibility and replication in different scientific disciplines. We have issues with that. But I think that, like, scientists recognize that. We're trying to address that.
Right.
And I don't think it's a negative. I think it's a positive that it's getting pointed out. And just given the fact, like, it would be a problem if people are like, it's not a problem. Replication, reproducibility is not a problem. We don't care about that. Then that's a concern. But the fact that science is introspectively looking at itself and saying, we have a reproducibility problem, we need to address those things, I think supports the fact that as flawed as the approach is, it's the best approach that we have, and we need to try to fix it. So if there's a reproducibility problem, which I think there is in some disciplines, and probably many disciplines, we need to fix it. Well, we can look at, like, the areas of, like, physics. Physics has done an excellent job of kind of standardizing their research across the world, mainly because they have, like, a type of research that all looks at, like, common bits of data, like astrophysics. They're all working on the same standard. So they have a set of standards that they all work with. It's not the case in other disciplines. And that creates gaps where people can, like, get by and not produce research that can be that is not reproducible. So anyways, I don't know if that's a good explanation for that, but yeah.
Well, like, also not all of it is what's the word? Like, some of it is subconsciously done, or just subtle errors or things like that. Like,
not
there are some, right?
Yeah.
No, like, there are. I think there are some fraudulent behavior in there, but it's very rare, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are in that, but oftentimes I just think that, like, it's due to, like, poor structuring of your data and methods, and it is, I think, it's based in there being, like, a lack of, like, structured methodologies on how to approach certain analyses. People are just like, hey, I did this shit on my own laptop. I wrote my code in my own way. It's all, the only place you can access it is on my machine. It's in, it's spaghetti code. And, this is the result I got. And somebody's like, how the hell can I reproduce this? And when they finally deconstruct everything, they discover that there's some errors. I don't think that person intentionally meant for theirs to be errors. It's just the fact of the way they did that work.
I've seen some creationist papers, and the reason they get rejected is, like, Abel and D'Onofrio, is they'll get rejected if they start to put some philosophical idea up front or pepper it somewhere, somewhere in the paper where they're trying to push a particular perspective, like ID or something like that. And of course, they'll claim that we do the same thing. We're trying to say, oh, it evolved this way, or we suspect this. But if they load their paper up with that stuff, they get rejected, and they're pretty butthurt about that. But D'Onofrio and Abel have gotten pretty good at not doing that, and so they've gotten published. I mean, the guy's got like 100 and some papers out there. Just,
hey guys, I gotta get something to eat, and then I gotta go over on Gur's stream. I feel bad that I'm not.
Oh my God, Jason. Wow. How much have you talked here, and how much have you been allowed to talk on Gur's stream? Right? Compare.
That's
And-
true.
and-
You
and
let
just
me
take-
ramble on a bunch here. So
And take a gaze at my description compared to Gur's shabby fucking.
but you guys didn't compliment me on my chin or anything like that.
Yeah, but we love your chin here, Jason.
I
We
know,
just
I
fucking love it, man.
I know.
I mean, God.
I know.
Oh, by the way, Gur is wondering why he's got so many dislikes. So I was just kind of kidding, but apparently he struck back, and I have 4 dislikes, so I know that motherfucker is one of them. And I changed my dislike to a like. I'm going to change it back. If I don't see my dislike count go down.
There you go. Minutes. Oh, that's great.
I want to say one last thing. Wait a second. Andrew, I think you're a smart guy. And are you going to college? Are you in college?
I'm currently in community college right now.
Okay, that's great. I mean, I think that like you have a bright future, and I'm glad that you're out here asking these questions. And so, I hope that you move your way to university.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I intend to eventually.
Yeah, I know. Maybe it's like it's more cost effective this way. So
right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and thank you for your detailed explanation of all this earlier.
Definitely, yeah. Okay, I gotta eat. Otherwise, my kid's gonna get.
Yeah, and you gotta get over to Gur's stream. Get the hell out of here, Jason.
I'm surprised you didn't throw me off the stream.
Jason.
All right, so.
Tossing them off. Anyway, I kind of want to shoot it in the head, anyway, guys.
Yeah. Hey, Andrew, I wanted to ask you. It's probably a dumb question, but are you planning on publishing maybe later on in life yourself? Probably a goal, right?
Yeah, or when I do become a scientist. Yeah, that's eventually my goal. Eventually,
yeah.
Or you could write a really good detective novel.
It seems to me that publishing would be a distraction from the work. I don't know. That's how I would.
Yeah,
how else would other scientists benefit from the knowledge gained, though?
Fuck them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of personally debating between teaching and research, and I'm kind of leaning towards research just because it sounds, I'm kind of poor with words, as you can tell, but I'm kind of better at writing and visualizing stuff. So
if I had gone through that process and gotten a PhD, what I want to do with YouTube content, I don't have the skills to do. And when you listen to Dr. Dan and how clearly he puts something out there, or Jackson Wheat or one of those guys, I have a long way to go before I can do that kind of stuff. And I would have been served well by going through that process that Jason was talking about. And I really feel I regret in my life, and I don't have time right now to go through the whole process. So,
sorry, can we highlight Gur's last comment?
Yeah.
That's so nerdy. It's so funny because it's so nerdy. Join the dark side. We have cookies.
Yeah, Gur, I gave you a like. I changed it from a like to a dislike, but I still have 4 dislikes. I swear, Gur, I'm going to attack.
I see what he's doing here.
I have a question. Because you just threw out so many keywords, skills and what you need to do on a YouTube stream.
Yep.
Would you agree with me that one of the main things that you need to have when you're doing science is imagination?
Yeah, I agree.
Agreed. Okay, so if you're going to shoot it in the head.
Yes.
Can you, for just one time, imagine that you trust me?
No, I don't trust you. I don't trust you.
Well,
I don't trust you. I don't trust you, Peter.
Look at
you. You will have my word that you will be satisfied. You will be satisfied with the outcome.
Trust is
earned. You have my word.
I'm going to give you one more shot. One more shot. And I tell you, this is the last shot. Okay, this is it.
You're okay. So, are you going to shoot it in the head?
I'm going to shoot it in the head, but I'm going to run my banner. Is that?
No, you're not going to run your banner this time. You're going to shoot it in the head, right?
Goodbye, cruel world.
cool.
Ooh.
That was cool.
Now we're shooting
That
at
was
names.
that was
very
awesome,
awesome.
Peter.
That was very